Hello there. So yeah, many of you have difficulty learning loops, and so let me see if I can share a few pointers with you about how to do loops and how to make them easier. Yeah, loops. Yeah, so yeah, what's the most important thing about a loop? Well, first thing that pops into my mind is you don't want to over-rotate your loop. Now, what could I possibly mean by over-rotate your loop? If you're going into the loop and your arms are overtaking your body, that's kind of like rotation, and that's not going to turn out well for you. So here's an over-rotated trying to do a loop. It doesn't really work out too well. Either it turns into an anvil, which is, it doesn't close, or it's just small and wobbly and insignificant. So yeah, so doing your loops, try to face into the loop. You don't have to try to make it turn. It just turns by virtue of coming in. We've already got some rotation by virtue of being on an edge. You've got, when you're on a curving, leaning edge, you can see, I can see the world going around. I can see the rink going around. And so I've got rotation in that edge. And that's all the rotation you want to do a good loop. I don't want to add any more rotation to it. So I'm already going around. I just come in and let the loop happen. Probably another fairly important tip that I can give you as far as doing good loops would be to try to stay on the same part of the blade throughout the loop. So you don't want to rock to the heel, for example, in the middle of the loop. It won't be smooth. You want to try to stay on exactly the same place on the blade. No rocking around. Just like anything you do out here, spins, whatever, you don't want to have this random motion. And there is a tendency to rock around on loops. It's very difficult to be stable when you do a loop, so you have to pay special attention, I believe, to keeping that on that same part of the blade as you do the loop. Then it will have a nice shape and tend to be smooth. It won't have a pointy top or something like that as you rock to your heel. Staying without rotating unnecessarily and staying on the same part of the blade. Couple of things for doing loops. Okay, here's tip number 3. I don't know, this is not maybe in any particular order of importance, but if you want to generate some speed coming out of your loops, you use the same kind of method that you would use to generate speed on these changes of edge. You can maintain your speed on those changes of edge by using a bouncing action in and out of the knee, right? Knee is straightening and bending, so it's kind of the same thing in a loop. If you want to generate a little bit of speed coming out of your loop, you start with a bend and you straighten, and that helps pull you out of the loop. Yeah, this is especially difficult on forward loops to get speed coming out of the loop. Bend, straighten. Maybe that's why most skaters do back inside loops and not forward loops in their step sequence. We don't see many forward loops. I think they're more difficult, and we learned forward loops before we learned backward loops in figures. And most things forward are easier than backwards, but with loops, seems to be that the back inside loop is the easiest. And so that's why most skaters do back inside loops. I had a little toe scratch on that loop. We want to try to avoid toe scratch. We don't want to allow the toe excuse me. We don't want to allow the toe pick to touch the ice on the loop. I did there just a little bit. Also, a little toe scratch on the ice. Hard not to, but I put my mind to it. No toe scratch. Yeah, you learn things about yourself when you try to teach. Okay, so that's the thing, but more important than avoiding toe scratch, which steals your speed and is crude and not refined, it's very important for loops that you start on a deep enough edge. You want to start with quite a deep edge to be able to do a loop. If you start too flat, the loop's going to be more difficult. Whenever we want to go around, we use the edges to do that. And so for example, if I'm doing a forward outside loop here, I start on a nice deep, you can see deep, and then it comes around easily. You can see the lean that I go into that loop with, right? And then so the rotation of the loop is not such a big deal, and you can skate out of it nice and easily also with that, the use of that bend and straightening. Free leg. What does the free leg do in a loop? Well, it could do almost anything, because the free leg really isn't the part of the essence of the technique. You could do almost anything with your free leg that you want to on a loop. But if you're learning the loop and you want to make it easier for yourself, normally the free leg is going to come from, well, for an inside loop, it's inside the circle to go into the loop. It comes very close to the other foot. Notice that in the middle of the loop. So inside edge, no rotation, free leg very close, and then drawing out of the loop. And it's kind of similar for many loops. So outside loop, I don't have to bring it really that close in, but it's starting from behind and coming forward. Figure out what free leg action makes the loop the easiest. For that back inside loop, I brought the free leg very close to the skating foot to make the loop. It starts in front and ends up behind. Yeah. Free leg. It's going to help you make the loop also